And time to take a look at what's been making headlines across the world. And for that, I'm joined here in the studio by Dipti Laurent. Hello, Dipti.
Hi, Annette.
And you're starting with those protests which have been occurring in Chile for the last week or so.
That's right. Protesters continuing to clash with police even into the early hours of this Friday. The unrest erupted a week ago, just over a week ago, over a proposed hike in subway fares. But it's become a much larger movement about general inequality in Chile. And as a response, the president there, Sebastián Piñera, agreed to roll back those subway fare hikes. He also delayed planned raises in electricity prices. But for many protesters, it's not enough, and you can really see that coming through on the front page of Metro Chile today, which has a strong message from protesters to authorities. They just don't get it. They don't get why we're protesting. They say, I quote, "There's no doubt that people are fed up with the abuse of an economic model that only privileges the wealthy," the paper evoking what it calls a Chile Spring.
And a lot of the South American media are starting to refer to it as a Latin American Spring, evoking obviously what occurred with the Arab Spring. But the Guardian newspaper is saying they're not sure if that's right to actually describe it as such.
Exactly. It's quite an interesting article because if you look at it at face value, from Chile to Ecuador to Bolivia to even Haiti, the South American and Central American continent has indeed been rocked by social movements sparked by three things, really: economic woes, political corruption, and influences from around the world, like the Hong Kong uprising or even the Yellow Vest movement here in France. But unlike the Arab Spring uprising, though, this article says it's not really about toppling leaders. It's more about pushing through social change. One journalist interviewed said she sees it more as a catalyst, but she's not really sure whether this movement that we're seeing now will actually have any lasting change. But you only need to look at the map of the world to see just how much unrest there is right now. And in fact, Huffington Post has pinpointed all the areas where there are protests right now, and there are a lot. And they're primarily led by young people, which the website says, who the website says is where there's a quote, very entrenched global unhappiness.
Okay, now, Dipti, no press review these days is remiss without the mention of that word.
That dreaded word now.
Yep. Brexit.
That's right. This after Boris Johnson, of course, wrote a letter to the opposition leader, Jeremy Corbyn, asking that they figure this whole Brexit thing out by next month. He also plans to call for early elections in December, December 12th. Now, Corbyn and the Labour Party are threatening to block that December vote. In turn, Johnson's government has threatened to go on strike if they do so. So basically, we're basically where we started. It's a Christmas election standoff. That's what the Eye says. Hats off to Metro today for their inspired headline. Johnson has called for a Brexmas election. Why don't we just put all the words we can find together? Schools, the paper particularly concerned that schools planning to hold nativity plays may not be able to do so because they will have to put ballot boxes in there instead. Also, a great cartoon from the irreverent cartoonist from The Independent, Dave Brown, who sees it rather as a performance issue for Boris Johnson. He's got electile dysfunction, you might say.
No comment. Okay. Now, in our home country of Australia, in case you viewers don't realise, both Dipti and I do come from Australia, tourists are no longer going to be allowed to climb on Uluru from this day onwards. Is that right? From
Saturday onwards. It's the end of an era, and that's what the Northern Territory News, a local paper in Australia, says. From tomorrow onwards, tourists can no longer hike up Uluru, and in the last few days we've seen a massive rush to climb that symbolic monument. And tomorrow is no ordinary day. Tomorrow will mark 34 days since Uluru was given back officially to its traditional owners, the Anangu tribe, for whom there is a connection to the rock dating back 30,000 years. It's not really clear what kind of significance the rock has to them, but we do understand that they believe that the Uluru climb was linked to their ancestors around the time when the world was being formed. So
they see it as a spiritual icon, don't
exactly.
they?
That's right, a spiritual icon. And for the Sydney Morning Herald, that's the reason why we should respect it. The paper's editor is saying today that we should respect the rights of its traditional owner and accept that their wishes are that we should no longer climb the rock.
Now, this story from China, that teaches a very good lesson about never outsourcing your work.
That's right. So it's quite a dark story, I must say. A Chinese businessman offered about $280,000 to a hired assassin to kill his rival. That hitman outsourced the job to another hitman, who then did it for half the price, who then outsourced to another and another and another. In total, there were 5 hitmen, and thankfully no murder was actually committed because hitman number 4 was upset about his arrangement, so he snitched to the police, and that's how the whole plan was unraveled. The 5 hitmen and the businessman who organized the murder were arrested and sentenced after a 3-year trial this week. The punishment was progressively smaller as for the hitman as he went down the order. The intended target of all of this is fine, by the way, probably enjoying this comedy of errors.
I am sure. And finally from you, okay, I don't believe this. It's Halloween next week, and there's already a new food trend in America.
That's right. I'm not sure if we can call it a food trend, but this is certainly a suggestion that might inspire your disgusting Halloween meals, or at least freak out your guests. It's called feetloaf. It looks like it's very lifelike severed feet made from raw ground beef. It was making the rounds on social media this week. Particularly gross are the little onions that make up the toenails. The picture was liked thousands of times on Twitter. It was posted by a Tulsa rapper who was looking to make dinner for his 5 kids and I guess wanted to get a little creative.
Indeed. I think I'll pass on that dish. Thanks for that. That's Dipti Laurent with a press review. And if you want to take a look at the stories we've just been talking about, you can, of course, head to our website, that being France24.com.